Okay, so I was going to talk about the Columbus series, but honestly, who even cares about that anymore? Woohoo, we won, and that's great, but I can't even focus on that right now because now we get to the real shit. And you know who's up next? Pittsburgh. That's right, the evil empire. And you know, I could sit here and I could talk about the X's and O's of this series, such as 1. Both teams have a great power play, and the Caps were on fire with the man advantage in the first round, converting on exactly 1/3 of their power play opportunities. 2, the penalty kill. The Caps finished off round 1 with 17 straight kills and did not allow a power play goal in the final 4 games of the series, with all 4 of those games uncoincidentally turning out to be Washington wins. Penalty killing so important in today's NHL, and you know, there were certainly a few adjustments made by the coaching staff on the penalty kill between game number 2 and game number 3, which is when the sudden turnaround occurred, but I think it's safe to say that the biggest adjustment made and the biggest reason for the penalty kill's sudden effectiveness is... So yeah, the penalty kill was excellent for the Caps in the last 4 games of their series versus Columbus, and if they have any interest in moving on to round 3, they'll make sure to keep that up against what is almost certain to be about 6,000 penalty kills faced in round 2 against the Penguins. 3. The Caps, if they're so inclined, can get an edge at 5-on-5, where the Penguins have looked like a pack of nuns slip and sliding around trying to suck a donkey dick for much of the season. 4, the goaltending. Both of these guys, that would be Braden Holtby and Matt Murray, are both great goalies. Both of them were a little bit shaky during this most recent regular season, and you know, as Caps fans, if we thought Holtby was having a rough regular season, then I really encourage you to take a look at the regular season that Matt Murray just finished up, because relatively, Holtby's struggles were nothing compared to the drawn-out suckage that Murray had. And while Murray's struggles have continued a bit into the postseason, Holtby has been on fire in the playoffs. Like a white knight, he rode into that first-round series versus Columbus and saved not only pucks, but saved the Caps season as well, winning all 4 of his starts and posting a ridiculous 1.92 goals against average and a .935 save percentage in the process to guide the Caps to 4 straight wins to close out the series. And like I said, if you followed the Pens at all this season, which I did because I'm a masochist, then you know that Matt Murray's struggles have been going on pretty much all season long. Now, we're not going to pretend like Holtby hasn't struggled against Pittsburgh in the past, and we do have Grubauer as a nice backup option. Although I do think the book is out on Grubauer's high glove kryptonite, so I don't know that putting him in would actually help to stop the bleeding at all if that was the case. And besides, with the way that Holtby is playing and the confidence that the team has in front of him, it's his net from here on out. We will either win with Holtby or we will bleed to death. 5. Yes, the X's and O's do matter to an extent, but let's not pretend this series is anything other than what it actually is for the Caps. It's all up here. This is all mental for the boys in red, white, and blue. And, you know, I love Alex Ovechkin's attitude towards this series. When we beat Columbus in Game 6, and those ruthless reporters ask him almost before the final horn had even gone how it feels to be heading into another second round series with Pittsburgh, instead of being all like, yes, instead of doing that, which would have been totally understandable, mind you, but no, instead of doing that, he gets this big, genuine smile on his face, and he says, I can't wait. Ovi understands that you have to face these things head on, so he's not hiding from it, and better than that, he's actually looking forward to it. Because Ovi, he's broken enough records at this point that he understands that history is made to be broken, and what better way to erase your jaded past than to knock out the franchise who's been responsible for so much of it. To be the king, first you've got to take out the king, and I love the attitude that the Caps captain has going in. An injury update. Evgeny Shrek Malkin and Carl Hagelin will not play Game 1 for the Pens, while Andrei Burakovsky is still on the injured list for the Caps. Malkin, of course, was injured when he attempted a slew foot on a Philadelphia Flyers player and got the worst of it himself. Karma. Penguins fans are already making the excuse that Malkin is injured, although that's pretty funny to me because you didn't hear any of them belittling their win over us last year because Ovechkin played the entire series on one leg. It wasn't like, oh, yay, we beat the Caps, but Ovechkin is so hurt, though, so it doesn't really count. Nope, I never heard anything like that at all. Penguins fans were every bit as obnoxious as usual after that series win, and so I hope that, likewise, they'll understand if we don't want to listen to their excuses and whining about injuries. What goes around comes around, son. The only difference is that our Russian superstar is made of steel, and so he toughs it out and doesn't miss a shift, let alone a game, while yours will be out week to week with a torn vaginal lip. But that's none of my business. And in other news related to this series, Pierre Maguire and his band of PenBC idiots have been assigned to cover the Capitals versus Penguins series. Reportedly, after Pierre, naked and crying and yelling frantically on Gary Bettman's porch at 3 o'clock in the morning, was seen clutching his genitals and shouting, "Gary, if you don't let me cover my lover's second round series, then I am going to tell everyone about you and Mario." Now, one can only assume that by his lover, he was referring to Sidney Crosby, as eyewitness reports confirm that there was a black and gold number 87 sock hanging from Pierre's ding-dong during the encounter. Anyways, with Pierre and his boys on board for this series, you can expect the annual Pittsburgh Penguins circle jerk that we've become so accustomed to on PenBC. Now, let's just get this out of the way before this series even starts. Everybody outside of Pittsburgh is a Washington Capitals fan for the next 2 weeks. Nobody likes the Penguins. I don't think that's a secret. And so I just want to welcome, with open arms, all of the fans from all of the other 29 teams in the league who want to hop on the Caps bandwagon for these next 2 weeks. You are all welcome here, and this is a safe space to come together and hate on all things Penguin related. Do you all remember our bitter rival, the Philadelphia Flyers, after we eliminated them in Philly in 6 games in 2016, and the Philly crowd knew that we were moving on to face Pittsburgh? And even though we just eliminated them in a blood-filled series, 18,000 Flyers fans were all chanting, "Beat the Pens!" as the Caps and Flyers lined up to shake hands. Did you all catch John Tortorella the other night? After the Caps had just eliminated his Blue Jackets in 6 games, and he's going to shake Barry Trotz's hand, and he grabs Barry by the shoulder. A real solid, encouraging, go get him type of grab. And Torts leans in, and you can clearly see him speaking the words, "Please beat those fuckers," as he gives Trotz a "go do it" type of stare and gives him a big pat on the back. Of course, this came as no surprise, as it's no secret that Tortorella does not hold a ton of respect for the Penguins. Do you remember this?
It's a cheap, dirty hit. It's just, I wonder what would happen if we did it to their 2 whining stars over there. I wonder what would happen. So I'm anxious to see what happens with the league with this. Just no respect amongst players. None. It's sickening.
Why do you think that happens, a play like that?
Ask the guy who did it. Ask him. It's one of the most arrogant organizations in the league. They whine about this stuff all the time, and look what happens. It's ridiculous. But they'll whine about something else over there, won't they? Starting with their 2 stars.
We're not going to whine here. Pittsburgh can whine. Pittsburgh whines enough for the whole league, so there's no room for any other team to whine. So we just go about our business and...
Now, don't get me wrong, Torts can be a bit of a Looney Tune, but he said what we were all thinking there. And as for the Caps and us Caps fans, rest assured that we are all going to do our very, very best to ensure that the entire hockey world gets what they yearn for this spring, which is an unceremoniously eliminated Pittsburgh Penguins squad. And who knows, maybe this year's Caps team is the one. After all, honestly, when was the last time that you can ever remember the Caps winning 4 straight playoff games? I can't remember it happening ever in my lifetime. And I do know for certain that in defeating Columbus, the Caps became the first team in NHL history to win a playoff series after dropping the first 2 games in overtime on home ice. Only 5 teams in NHL history had ever even made it to a Game 7 after starting off that way. And all 5 of those teams lost that eventual Game 7. The Caps, of course, didn't even need a Game 7 in order to get it done. So who knows? At least from a resiliency standpoint, this team is certainly different than its past incarnations, different from any team of any franchise in NHL history, in fact, because they are the first ones to do what they just did against Columbus. So here is hoping for a great first round series, and I hope to see you all there.